Hello, and thanks for joining us on our show, Spiritual States. With us is Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello. And our topic for today, the Ten Commandments. I think that this is the most interesting topic that practically interests everyone, has been around for a few thousands of years, even though that we know that the 7 laws of Noah, there were 6, and after the flood, 1 more was added, and they existed 1,000 years before we've received the 10 Commandments. And I read your blog, and let's try and give a Kabbalistic interpretation to these laws. As we know, the 10 Commandments are laws of interaction between people. Some of them appear that way, some don't. We're talking about the inner meaning of things. Well, in general, these are the laws of the universe, but since they're determined by the relations between people, and the relations between people determine all the rest of the laws of nature, then, of course, it all comes down to the relationships or relations between people. So, the First Commandment, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. As I understand, only the Creator can deliver a person from his ego. Why is this the First Commandment? Why did the Creator need to declare this to be first? Well, because it's a cornerstone that there is one force in the world that's higher than everything, that elevates a person from the still to the vegetative to the animate to the human level. The human, the degree of man, is he who attains connection with the Creator, coming out of the animal level, animate degree that practically all of humanity is on, regardless of how much they know and science they have and art. Animate meaning when a person thinks about himself, when he's in his ego. Right. And so, coming out of that animate state to the degree of man, Adam in Hebrew from the word domeh, meaning alike the Creator, similar to Him. This exodus can occur only under the influence of a special upper force called Creator. Why? Because by that he as if creates man. Kabbalists really discovered this kind of law, that this metamorphosis, replacing the egoistic perception of the world with a more whole and complete one, can occur only under the influence of the upper force. Right. It's a change in man's sensation, state in this world, everything. So Kabbalah doesn't talk about certain people, that some force brought them out of Egypt, even though that maybe it happened or didn't happen historically. That's up to historians to decide. What it talks about is spiritual ascent, attainment. So, okay, like we already said, we're not going to get into history because we already made a show about it, and we said that any law, internal spiritual law, at least once needs to dress, not necessarily in the same time, to the same extent, but some kind of symbols there have to be in our world, according to the law of root and branch. Second Commandment, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. So we can say that those who attain that law, they say that there is just this one force. Right. Anything that you can imagine to yourself is a derivative of that upper force. And so, if you take into account different secondary, etc., force beside that one higher upper force that they decide, determine, and do something in our world, then that's your mistake. You need to know that you're not on the highest degree of attainment then. A person, in order to observe this commandment, means that behind all objects of this world, I see one force. And if I can relate to things that way, that behind everything there's just this one force, then I can also justify it, and it means that I observe or keep this commandment. It's not that I believe in... No, it's not about belief whatsoever. It's about attainment. So, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, that there's no other force. Right, but you also can't envision it or depict it in any way, because how can you depict a force? We can't. I can draw an arrow. Right, there are vectors in Kabbalah. Right, vectors, but to depict a force in some kind of way, like we imagine something existing in our world, we can't. We can't depict forces in our world either. We depict them as vectors, but that's it. So it's the force of bestowal, connection, integration, emanation, a force that comes from a person onwards. Right. Third Commandment, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. I try to understand what it means. You explain it that you can't draw the force of the Creator in order to perform some kind of egoistic action. Right. Meaning you can act by the force of the Creator, but only to the measure of your similarity to Him, to the measure of your connection with Him. So egoistically, you can't use that force to your own benefit. Right. In order to, I don't know, get rich or whatever. Right. Meaning not to take the name of your God in vain. In vain meaning that it's the law of nature. That if you're not in similarity with it, you can ask or not. Won't work on you anyway. Right. Okay. That's an interesting direction. Because I was thinking he's so great and important that you can't take his name in vain. Only when you really need something you can ask. No, you can turn to him, of course, but to turn to him in that the Creator will help you become like him, to be like him. This is a purpose that you can always turn to him with, and it's preferable to turn to him with it. Fourth Commandment, this I didn't really understand. Remember the Sabbath day. Why does a person need to observe that one day, to rest on that day, and that it's so important to the Creator? It's important because there is periodicity, that every seventh day is a break, that is, it stops all of creation and launches it anew, and that's considered a week. I also found that you wrote that the 6 days, it's the Zeranpin, this is the work of man, meaning the entire work of man is to connect with other people. For 6 days a person works by himself, and he needs to understand that even if he works on the 7th day, it won't benefit him. But also, it's not the ordinary work that we do, because it says that throughout the 6 days, God worked and rested on the 7th. Meaning we too need to work for 6 days and rest on the 7th. So it's not the same work as the Creator does. His work was creation. Chesed, Kavua, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. 6 directions. And our work? Our work is in that we as if change ourselves in accordance with these 6 categories. And when we finish that, then we come to the last one. But the last one is then realized in us, in and of itself, and therefore you needn't do anything, just not to stand in the way. Meaning, if you have correctly drawn upon yourself the 6 forces, drawn to yourself, then the 7th force, Shabbat, Sabbath, from the word Shvita, rest or stop in the work. It happens in and of itself precisely because you do not interfere in the actions of the Creator. You have received everything possible from the Creator in these 6 degrees, the so-called 6 days, and then they all connect in you, and then on the 7th day you get their result. So it's not about our work in our world, but precisely the inner spiritual work, and when these 6 degrees I completed them, then the 7th is launched. I couldn't do anything even if I'd like to, because it's the work of the light. Right, the 7th degree is the sum total result of the previous 6 degrees. You only have to allow it to realize. I also saw in the ratings of Kabbalists that part of the work we do and part of the work is done by the light, meaning we have to do the so-called half the shekel, meaning if a person by himself, by his own efforts, has connected with others, then he gets pride, and it's not the right connection that we're talking about. It's not the right interaction, meaning you need to make an effort and to leave the work for the Creator to do. Right, because you can't complete it in any way, anyhow. Fifth Commandment. Here it's seemingly clear, honor thy father and thy mother. What is that? A person's mother and father are the forces of Chasadim and Chokhmah. These are, the Creator is the upper force. After him follow 2 lower forces, the Chokhmah and Binah. Chokhmah is the force of the father, Binah is the force of the mother. And following them come these 6 derivatives. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod is the Zeranpin, and then the Malchut, the created being. Right, the Malchut as the 7th day, or complete creation. So, honor thy father and thy mother, meaning Chokhmah and Binah. You need to give them the opportunity to create everything that exists in them, for it to become revealed in the 6 sfirot of the Zeranpin, 6 forces. What does it mean to honor? To honor meaning to completely wait for them to become revealed in creation, because Chokhmah and Binah, the mother and the father, they're above creation, above the created being. Through them, the Creator creates. And thus, the Zeranpin, these 6 sfirot, they're created by the mother and the father, and they practically form creation, the created being. So to honor, it means to allow them, give them the opportunity to act like in our world. Can an embryo do something? Even a little child. His parents do everything for him. And here, we're talking about the correct attitude of the lower to the upper. A person in our world needs to give these upper forces, higher forces, the ability to act, to form him. Meaning these are 2 forces, Chokhmah and Binah, that exist in reality, and when a person, according to the method of Kabbalah, starts connecting with other people and the Creator, he starts discovering these 2 forces. Right, and to honor these forces means to allow them to work on you, to give them the opportunity to form you. Sixth Commandment, it's a kind of philosophical, well, here begin philosophical, judicial laws that are kind of clear, but we'll scrutinize it from the inner point of view, of the inner work. Thou shalt not kill. So not to kill means not to use the desire of the other, right? Not to do anything to the detriment of others. That means not to kill, meaning all those forces that you've received now, everything that existed in the previous days, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, you've received all of them correctly, and now you need to form them correctly and not to interfere in the actions that they'll complete in you. This is the next degree. I understand that not to kill means not to use the desire for your own benefit. If I use the connection with the Creator, the light, to my own benefit, then that means to kill. I kill my desire. Right. Meaning my desire, it becomes filled, and the pleasure simply kills my deficiency, my chisaron, and disappears. There's an annihilation. It's like in our world, after a good meal, you need a break because you killed that desire. So this is what to kill means. Seventh Commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. What does it mean? Same, only in a different form. Not to use your connection with others for your own sake, for your own benefit. Love means bestowal, and adultery means an action for your own benefit, for yourself. So, if I use your desire to receive in order to delight myself, because a woman is considered the desire to receive, if I use it for my own sake, to my own benefit, we can say that that's considered adultery. Right, but it refers to men and women, by the way. Right, there's no difference. This is the attitude toward any desire, but especially adultery, because by that you exploit the other person. And the Eighth Commandment is, thou shalt not steal. Same. What's the difference, nonetheless? Because one refers to the animate and one to the inanimate. Not to steal? Right. So it's different degrees of coarseness. You pass from one possession to another, from one state of possession to another state of possession. And in adultery, you use the person himself, not the still vegetative or the animate, but what you use, exploit here, is man. So in a person there are 4 degrees of desire, and adultery is the human level in a person, right, the highest level. And not to steal are all the rest of the degrees, right, the still vegetative and animate. Like Maslow's pyramid, there are the basic desires, and there are desires for power, fame, etc., meaning they're much higher. So, not to commit adultery is the highest, meaning using to your own benefit the highest degree of desire in your fellow man. Okay? Ninth Commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Of course, because this way you create completely different conditions in the world. And you risk distorting all the relations, connections between the forces in the world if you introduce certain false conditions, parameters. So by that, I distance myself even further from the other. Right, in this way, I move away from the Creator. Of course, it's all based on a person not distancing himself from the Creator, all the laws, all the commandments. Well, in Kabbalah, we said that the Creator is the goal, and we can direct ourselves toward Him only through society, through other people. So if I bear false witness against someone else, by that I push myself away from the Creator. It's a shame that we don't see it. No. Then we would have simply been machines. We'd have no free choice. Of course not. But still, so many years went by, and, well, it's difficult to understand all of this, to keep it. It's not difficult, it's impossible. In nature, there can't be anything any other way. We need to agree to it. We need to understand that only this way do we orient ourselves correctly toward nature and its higher law that elevates us above our animate nature. So we need to agree with this ascent and to put ourselves in the hands of the force of that ascent, and then everything will work out. And the 10th Commandment, it seems like it's repeating itself. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife or his male servant, etc., etc. Right, it's all together, meaning you need to clearly understand that you are not boss of the world, you have nothing in this world. Everything that you actually have is not yours, and you can't want anything else, and eventually You can work with your desires only in bestowal. If you'll come to that, then you already become a man. So it's not only not to use the different sorts of desires in your fellow man, but to the contrary, you need to fulfill them, and then you will become like the Creator. Right. Meaning all these desires here, ox, donkey, all these animals, that's the animate degree of desires, etc. And when a person fulfills them, how can you fulfill them, by the way, these desires in your fellow man? The desires of your fellow man with what your fellow man wants? Well, he wants different things. I can't fulfill my own desires. Help him in general. Direct him toward the Creator. Obviously, you can't fulfill them by yourself. You'll never be able to. Okay, it's interesting. We talked about the Ten Commandments, and before that, as we said, there were the 7 laws of Noah. According to the Talmud, the Creator gave them through Adam to Noah, and they're meant for all of mankind. Right. After that, from humanity, a certain group divided themselves from that group called Yehudim, Jews, meaning those that yearn for the Creator, and they got additional commandments. So the 6 commandments are the same as those 10, but the 7th, which was added after the flood, before the reception of the Torah, obviously, that it's necessary to create a just judicial system. What does it mean? Because before the flood, everything was practically instinctive, and there was no need in such a correction. But only after the flood, because there was the revelation of the tremendous, terrible, egoistic force that has brought about the flood. And after the flood, this additional law was added. I mean, people were on an animate level, like animals. Animals don't need different judicial laws, lawyers, courts, etc. Right. But when the ego grew, there's already a need for some kind of system, judicial system, in order to reach the proper or correct interactions, and for that you need laws. Okay, interesting. And maybe to conclude with what Baal HaSulam, a Kabbalist of the 20th century, writes, he said that there are only 2 commandments. We have 10 Commandments, 613. He says there are only 2. For me, it was completely new. So I'll read from his article, Peace. In general examination, we find that there are only 2 mitzvot to follow in society. These can be called 1, reception, and 2, bestowal. This means that each member must by nature receive his needs from society and must benefit society through his work for its well-being. And if one breaks one of these 2 mitzvot, commandments, he will be mercilessly punished. Right. So there are 2 commandments. Interaction between people, either I receive something from you or give you something. Right. And where do the 10 come from? It's simply the way we sort them according to our state, condition, relations, etc. But actually, what else is there in nature besides reception and bestowal? That's all. So can I say that it's like 1 kilogram can be 1,000 grams, which is one and the same, only the resolution changes. Or 1 day, 365 days, so and so many hours, seconds, etc. Same thing here. So there are 2 commandments, and they're divided in, there's plus and minus in nature, that's it. When you start to instill them into the relations between people, and you start sorting people and each person in relation to himself and others, what you get is this enormous amount of different conditions of receiving and giving, and you need to all bring it all down into a single system, and that's what the Torah writes about. Rabbi Akiva went even further. He said there is 1 commandment, love another as yourself. Right above these 2, so that both reception and also bestowal will be to the benefit of your fellow man. Who is your fellow man? Everyone understands it differently. Anyone. Anything that a person does in the world in order to sustain this system in balance, then for him, everything comes down to bestowal. Actually, it's easy. Try to think about the other person, your fellow man, and you'll see how it disappears from your mind different problems, purposelessness, everything. Simply from yourself on. Your fellow man is really any person in the world? Yeah, try it. Even on the mundane level. And on the Kabbalistic level, there's already an entire system of interactions. But what will I get from it? This is what... But you're directed towards the other. So in order to do something for the benefit of others, I need to get some kind of fuel. Fuel you'll be given. Calories you'll get for it. But it's not natural, to a person. Ask for strength for it to be possible. I'm asking, what is it all for? Because by that, you attain a likeness to the Creator. You're asking, what will I get from it? Right, being like the Creator, what will that give me? To be like the Creator is a lot. It's to be like the Creator. And that's worthwhile. So it's said. Simply, there's not a lot written about it. It's not really advertised. In order to launch some kind of product, for example. The thing is that you can't advertise anything here because what can you offer right now, in advance, before a person does something to the benefit of others? But to describe at least how wonderful it is to be like the Creator, so many books are written, nothing about that. A lot is written about it, but it can't give anything. It won't help in any way. To be a millionaire, that's clear. There's a lot written about it. But a person sees examples in front of him. Here you don't. That's why I'm asking. Because similarity to the Creator is something that we can't grasp in our awareness, consciousness, or any examples of this world. Meaning we're demanded to do something that we simply don't understand, can't. For this, the Creator develops us to a state where we will feel that we can't live in any system of laws besides love another as yourself, because all the rest of the laws, they simply don't enable us to exist. Meaning you're developed from the opposite state, right? From negation as meaning we need to reject our current state. It will be such that you will want to reject it, get rid of it. Meaning to be or not to be like the Creator doesn't matter. The main thing is not to stay a moment longer in this state. Right. And where's the freedom of choice? The freedom of choice is not here. It's further on. Meaning on this level, nature gives us no free choice. No, on this level, you're pricked from behind toward the good, like a little animal. So to be like the Creator or not does not depend on us. He decided it, it's written in the program. Right, we'll come to that state one way or another. Only there are two ways. A pleasant and quick one, or a long and painful one. Choose. Thank you very much. I think it was very interesting and will be interesting for our viewers. Till next time, all the best.